Hey guys, we are back again with Kicking Cancer Cares on KSLM Radio. And our sponsor for this second half is Marianne McNally. She is a residential real estate specialist with Next Home Realty Connection. So if you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or just not really sure where to start and want to get all your ducks lined up in a perfect little row, she's your go-to girl. So her number is 503-409-4389.
And since you brought Marianne, I'm going to hold the flyer up for the YouTube channel.
Yes.
So this is this Wednesday coming up. It's on the 9th of October. It's the entire day at Red Robin. Mm-hmm. They open at 11. They close at 10 p.m. Please, please, please go have lunch or dinner at Red Robin on Lancaster. 20% of food sales go back to Kicking Cancer, and then we can turn around and then write a check out to Marianne.
Yep. Because
she is our current go-to person.
She is. And this counts for to-go orders as well. But you have to mention Kicking Cancer.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it does not.
Yeah, they will not know that you're there for the fundraiser. So just say, I'm here with Kicking Cancer. Then your server will push a button on their computer pad, and then we get some of the money back. But they have a goal to raise $2,000 per month.
Yep.
I said, well, we're going to blow that goal out in this one phaser alone.
Yes. So please, you guys.
Yeah, she's part of a group here in town called MVAR. It's a real estate association. So every realtor in town knows about this event. Allison from Breast Friends has spread the word with the Breast Friends organization. And of course, the radio station. We're just getting the word out that all we're saying is just go to Red Robin for lunch or dinner next Wednesday, and 20% of your ticket. So technically, you're not even doing a fundraiser, you're just buying food.
Right.
But I know what you and I will be doing next Wednesday.
Eating Red Robin.
That's right. But for the people that are watching through the YouTube channel, you will notice that we have headphones on now because during the commercial break, somebody called into the show. Welcome, caller.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes. So I'm actually kind of excited because this caller is actually related to me. This is my son, Trevor.
Oh, hello, Trevor. Thank you so much for calling.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Trevor's known for a while. In fact, he's listened to a number of episodes. I remember when we had Matt Miller on.
Yeah.
And his grandmother. Trevor sent me a text after that show aired, and he's like, "You're making me mad, Dad," because Trevor's grandmother passed away from cancer.
Yep. Not to say, but that was a tough one.
Yeah. But I know that our show, we've been talking about addiction and, sugar, and Barron openly admits that my addiction was sugar. I'm proud of both of you because we're going to talk about other things that can be addictive. And is there a reason that you chose to call in, Trevor?
Well, personally, I know that for several years, I'm pretty sure my addiction started in my early 20s, but, from the last 165 days of living a life clean, I'm really just an advocate for helping get the message out that there is hope for those of us who suffer from the disease of addiction. It's not a moral dilemma like so many people think. You're not a bad person if you're an addict. You're sick. You have a disease. And so when I heard you guys talking about addiction to sugar, and I heard sugar is 8 times more addictive than heroin. Isn't that what I think I read that somewhere?
Yeah.
Knowing that was that's crazy. And knowing something that's in everything as a society, we all consume sugar, and so many people don't understand, there are people, like, you don't make somebody feel bad for eating a Snickers bar, but you'll make somebody feel bad for doing drugs or drinking.
So
which in my mind, addiction's addiction.
So you said a couple things, Trevor. First off, congratulations, 165 days.
Yes, that's huge.
And you can't see this because you're calling in, but both of these ladies are nodding their heads right now with what you're talking about. So I'm just going to start with Ashlie. She's to my right. Because I know, and both of you guys have been very open with me and again, bravely want to talk about this. But there was an episode we did sometime back, Ashlie, and I'm showing this to the cameras, Trevor. There's a book that I reference a lot. It's called Chris Beat Cancer. And Chris brought awareness to something that is really intriguing, and I know it caught your attention, Ashlie. In the United States alone, the number of prescriptions written for painkillers nearly tripled from 1990 to 2010. there were 209.5 million painkiller prescriptions written in 2010 alone, enough to medicate every single American all day and night for an entire month. Why did that statement hit you so hard?
So I was that generation. I was in a sledding accident, and I'm trying to remember the time frame, but I want to say I was a freshman in high school. After I got back from being injured, first thing, doctor's office, my mom's sitting there. I was that child with my mom being told by a doctor, don't worry, they're not addictive. This will help with your pain. Just take them as prescribed. And that's what sent me on my addiction path, honestly.
How long were you addicted to pain pills?
Up until I was 33, and I'm about to be 40.
So 16 years?
Yeah.
Somewhere close to that?
Yeah. It was a long time.
For something to help you with your pain because of your skiing accident that was not addictive. Mm-hmm. The doctor told your mom they're not addictive.
Yeah, don't worry, they're not addictive.
But yet you took that pain pill for 16 years. Mm-hmm. That kind of sounds like you had an addiction.
And the crazy part was, too, I tore my ACL my sophomore year. I tore my ACL. So that was also the next intro to it. Because, okay, I had the sledding accident. You get a small prescription of it. You don't really think anything of it. And then I tear my ACL. And then they're just writing prescription after prescription after prescription.
Yeah.
And the craziest part of all of it is once you're hooked on these pills and you get to a certain point, then they want to push you to pain clinics so you can learn pain management. Why didn't you do that in the first place?
Right.
Why didn't you help me learn that in the first place instead of just writing me that prescription?
Yeah.
Towards the end of, the worst of it, I had a doctor writing me prescriptions that it was absurd, the amount.
Yeah.
And the dose.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finally was off them and with my doctor that I have now, he's like, you should not be here. You should not be here. I was not just being prescribed pain pills. I was also being prescribed benzos, muscle relaxers.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So taking those together
is a cocktail for disaster.
Oh, yeah. And so my doctor now, he's like, you're lucky to be here.
Mm-hmm.
It gives me goosebumps.
Be here, like be alive.
Be alive.
Yeah, be alive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. And there's a lot of things that happened that transpired in that whole time, and there's different substances that I used as well. But I feel like the number one thing that triggered the other use of things as well was there's traumatic events that happen, mm-hmm. or there's certain griefs that just linger, you know. But pain pills are no joke. They really are. It's not just that easy to get off of it.
Yeah.
And then you think because your doctor's prescribing it, I'm not a drug addict. No, I am not.
Right.
But when you don't have it, you're craving it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that the whole sugar issue right now too, those cravings.
It's
the
real.
Craving, the dopamine,
mm-hmm.
the, what did I say it was? Endorphins.
Endorphins.
The dopamine. When you stay on pain pills for a long amount of time, it messes up those receptors.
Yes.
So you don't get to feel happiness like everybody else can feel it.
Yeah.
It's interesting once you start to figure it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for me, it's Mountain Dew, it's sugar.
Yeah.
And I remember once I understood this, and they were talking about the pull to sugar. Like donuts are kind of like my thing. I like a donut, but it's hard to buy one donut late at night. They're trying to get rid of them, so they put like 12 in a box. You have to buy the whole dozen because I got to get rid of them in the store. So I want a donut. I'm about to buy 12 of them, and I bring them home, and I have one. Okay, that was good. So I had a second one. Okay, that was great. And I sit down to watch television, and I literally felt my body being pulled back for a third donut.
Oh, yeah.
And so I took the whole box to the trash because I thought if I don't, I'll just eat all of them. So for me, it's just a pull to sugar. For you, it was pain pills. Do you want to talk about yours, Amanda?
Yeah. So mine was pain pills as well, or that's how it started. I was not prescribed them. It was, I'll leave that part out because I don't want to throw anybody else under the bus.
That's okay because I was there too. Like when let's say your doctor's not writing you those prescriptions because they're starting to catch on that something's not right. Well, then you're going to turn to where can I get them? Where can I find them?
Anyways, I started doing them recreationally. And just because it was popular, it was what people were doing, and it was like, I won't be the people that get addicted to it. I just want to try it and see what it's about. You know, everyone looks like they're having a blast, so I tried the pills, and I never quit. And then it spiraled, and then it got to a point where it was hard to find them anymore because I wasn't prescribed. It was just on the street thing. So then I turned to heroin. I never shot it. I smoked it. Doesn't really matter. It's still
I did as
bad.
well.
And then that was probably, my addiction started in 2009. And then in 2012 was when my ex-husband was incarcerated, and I decided to get clean. And but cold turkey was really, really difficult for me.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going to a methadone clinic, and I got put on methadone, and the addict in me kept increasing my dose so high, and they allowed it.
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part.
It was so bad that my body was rejecting it. By the time I would get out into the parking lot, I was throwing up my dose because I was at such a high dose. But
Wow.
the addict in me was like, it's not enough. But it was so much, it was making me sick. I was at that point at 300 milligrams. And I was a tiny little thing at that point. And so I quickly backed down off of that and was like, I need to pull it together. I'm losing myself. What? Because of my addiction? I want a high dose. What? Because I'm an addict? Like,
Yeah.
Get out of here. You're at this clinic because you need to do better.
Right.
And so I lowered my dose and did that. And then in 2018, I'm completely free of methadone and
Yay.
everything.
I'm right there with you because I did the same thing.
Well, and
it
the
got-
listeners
it-
on the radio can't see it, but you guys just high-five each other.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. It
It's
got
not
to
easy.
a point where you're just sick and tired, but at the same time, you're trying to like relieve your high.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was one of the reasons that I started going to the clinic.
Yeah.
I got tired of it, but at the same time, I'm like, I want to get better. I'm so tired of this life.
Yes.
So I did the same thing. And what they don't tell you about that medicine is it eats the natural biome in your stomach. And so the things that you have to endure when you're getting off of it, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
Like
Oh.
I was sick. I was almost 300 pounds around that time because I was eating so much sugar on top of it as well.
Yes, it makes you crave sugar.
Yeah.
And
the
so
methadone.
I was extremely sick for
Yeah.
a good year. And then finally I'm like, something's not right. I need to get off of this. It served its purpose. I'm no longer I don't want pain pills. But that's when I tapered off, and I've been clean since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
You too.
It's
Well-
not easy.
And the hard part is the judgment from people. As soon as you say that you've gone through these experiences, they start to look at you differently. And that shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like that.
I'm a
because
fighter.
Everyone has a vice. And the ones that try to judge you, they've got a vice.
Yeah. Oh,
you
yeah.
know? So
So I'm going to use your statement as a great segue to our caller, because Trevor, when you first started talking, you said someone like myself, Barron, who has an addiction to sugar, isn't really being judged. No one looks at the guy that is at the table on his 5th free refill of Mountain Dew,
yeah.
judging him.
Right.
I mean, I made this comment to your husband that it was hard for you to go to Applebee's anymore and order a drink because you're paying almost $3 for the drink because they know you're going to get a refill.
Yeah.
Except if I get 2 refills, I drink almost a cup of sugar, and I know that now, okay? But no one's sitting there judging me for my 5th refill of Mountain Dew.
Or the guy at the next table that has a Jack and Coke.
Oh, yeah. But if you were to pull out another drug, they would probably judge you.
Yep.
So while I've got you on the phone, Trevor, because I know where you're at in life, and I know where you were tired of where you were and you're making changes, do you want to share what your addiction was?
Yeah. So my DOC was meth. I never slammed it. I never did intravenous. Thank goodness, because the one time I almost did, the person pinched me with a belt and it freaked me out. So I thank my higher power that never happened.
Wow.
That I never did it. But it was one of those, I call it like a gone moment where like he pinched my arm and it freaked me out. So I was like, nope, don't put that in my arm.
Good for
And I'm
you.
so glad I never did, because I hear about people who, like everyone who I've known who's gotten clean, who used to do it intravenous, has all told me, like even when using with them, like if you ever do it, we're gonna knock some sense into you. in like the nicest way I could say that, because it was much more colorful the way they would say it. But I learned to, like, you know, like I said, my DOC was meth. It was, it started for me when I was in my early 20s. I came out as gay, and I've come to realize that I think that was the beginning of my journey of addiction, because I didn't have a very good, I wasn't very accepted. Like, I mean, it's in the past, but at that time, I wasn't very accepted by my family for coming out as gay, and basically, I cut my family off. I said, you know what, you guys can't accept me for me, then you can't have me. And it was one of the hardest times. My dad and I know how hard it was for the both of us, because we've been so close since I was young. But I started with alcohol. I got into the drag scene. I got into the party scene, like the bars and the clubs in Salt Lake City. And you know, I came out in a burst of confetti and wigs. Like, I started doing drag. I really got into the scene. And then I realized, you know, there's not just drinking in the back room, or the backstage in the dressing room. There's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then I remember it started with alcohol, and then it was to be accepted by people, because I was really struggling with my sexuality. I was like, well, I could just party and play, but I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I really didn't know what I was doing, but it started for me as a sex thing. It was like, you know, I would get together with a guy, we would smoke, and then we would have sex. And then, but it was never really, I don't want to say it wasn't a problem, because it wasn't a regular thing. I was a recreational user. I was you know, it's the weekend, I don't work. I can like go party and play. And one thing that happened to me was so actually here coming up in about a month from today, on November 2nd, 2012, I actually was hospitalized with a fever of 112 because I had contracted HIV. And the doctor told me it must have been within days. And now I can pinpoint exactly who, don't ask me his name, where, and like everything. I was at a party, a group thing, and there was lots of drugs, all sorts of drugs. And so really for me, that was, I just like, well, okay, now I have HIV, so whatever, I don't care anymore. And then I kept drinking, I did drag, and alcohol, I mean, alcohol is a drug, plain and simple. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, a drug is a drug is a drug. I don't care what anyone says, a drug's a drug. And so for me, alcohol was the beginning of, and then it was meth, and then I kind of wavered off meth and was just drinking. But about 6 years ago, I was living in LA, and the guys I was staying with got an eviction notice, and all of my stuff in the storage was auctioned off because they didn't pay their rent. So I got kicked out of the house, lost all my stuff, and went to work at Universal Studios. And I didn't even know it. I had a dirty weed pipe, and that was against protocol. Like, I tried walking to work with it, and they're like, you can't come, you're suspended. So in a matter of 48 hours, I lost my job, my home, and all my stuff.
A lot of traumatic events.
I was on the streets of LA for 2 weeks. And that, like, so I think when I came out, that and the denial of my family was that maybe that traumatic thing, it triggered it. But then when I was on the streets of LA, I mean, if you've ever been to LA and you see people on the streets, they look strung out because you don't fall asleep. You don't. It's dangerous to fall asleep on the streets of LA. If you fall asleep, you're going to wake up and you're going to be stripped clean. Like, you'll be lucky if you have your chonies on. And so I would, you know, I was taught by somebody, I puppy dogged behind them for several days, ended up several dangerous trap houses where I had some very traumatic I was raped. And it was very hard for me at the time to just surrender to the fact that I had a problem. Because in my mind, I was trying to protect myself by getting high so I wouldn't go to sleep. And I was trying to go to a place where I thought I'd be safe. But I ended up, you know, I realized I'm going to die here. Mm-hmm. So my birth mom actually flew me to Eastern Washington 6 years ago. And I lived with her for a few months. And then I moved to Yakima where I met my ex. And that was really where my daily usage, it went from being a fun thing occasionally to me and my ex would do it all the time because he was a dealer. And then it became a social thing where it wasn't even sex anymore. People would come over and we would just like a hookah, like in India where people were just passing around the pipe. And it was a social thing. And it became a daily thing. The only time in those 5.5 years I didn't smoke, and we talked about taking a break, quote unquote. The only time I didn't smoke and I couldn't, the only time I didn't want to pick it up was when I had COVID for 3 days. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, every day, it was a daily thing. Like, I would be up for days. And then I would fall out. Because the thing about meth, like from my understanding with heroin, you actually don't just become addicted. You become dependent, just like alcohol. Your body becomes chemically dependent on it, and the withdrawals are miserable. Like, you're in pain, you're sick. Meth, you do too much of it, your body overamps, you fall asleep. And that's what would happen with me. And I would be up for days, and then I would fall asleep, and I'd be asleep for like a day and a half.
Yeah.
And I'd wake up so angry that I just didn't get anything done. I remember at the time thinking, like, if I stay up for days, I can get everything done.
I want to interrupt you for a second. I'm going to interrupt you for a second, Trevor. Only for time's sake, because I think there are plenty of listeners that are related to what you're talking about. But we're going to run out of time. But there's something all three of you guys mentioned, and I think it's just so critical. Somebody once told me the opposite of addiction is not recovery. The opposite of addiction is community. And that's what I'm trying to create with Kicking Cancer, is a community that you can lean on when it comes to cancer. But I don't know if it was one of you ladies or Trevor, somebody said that you have to lean on like minds.
You really do.
Whether it be the pain pills, the heroin, the meth that Trevor's talking about, you got to lean on those like minds.
Why,
to get through
when you're in that addiction, you're hanging out with the people that do the same thing as you. You have to get away from that.
Yeah.
You have to pull yourself and cut yourself off from that.
Well, and I know that Amanda shared this with me, that, when you and Bo made the decision, you had to cut off. And I know with Trevor, he had to sever ties and leave. But what I'm hoping the listeners are hearing is, whether you're going through a cancer diagnosis, whether you're going through an addiction situation, because this show is not about addiction recovery. I'm glad you guys opened up, but I do want to circle back to the purpose of the show is Kicking Cancer. But at the same time, while you're going through the cancer diagnosis, it would be really easy to get hooked on other kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And so you've got to have a community to lean on.
Yeah.
And what Brandon and I started 6.5 years ago has become a community to lean on when you're going through your situation. And I just think that it's critical that we remind listeners of that before we run out of time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I, again, Trevor, I wish you had more time, and a lot of things. It's all water underneath the bridge, but it's always hard to hear what I did to contribute,
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to go through, but you can't hold on to that,
Right.
You forgive.
Yeah.
You forgive. And I know that you two have a good relationship now, right?
Yeah.
So that's all that matters.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Well,
That's really all that matters.
With you saying that, Dad, one thing that I always believe is, like, the future is not promised. The future is a mystery. The past is history. All we have is the present.
Amen.
And all we have is today. It's called the present because it's a gift. And I believe that I can't change yesterday. There's no going back in time. And tomorrow, I have no idea. I am a just for today kind of person.
Yep,
I'm living for the now. I woke up today clean. I go through my day, life on life's terms. I'll deal with what I have to. And as long as I hit my pillow tonight without picking up a drug, any drug, then I've won. And as long as it's today, that's all we can do. And in my mind, it's the same with cancer. If you fight cancer, like, I know Brenda is an amazing fighter. I mean, the woman is, don't mess with a woman who's called under barbed wire for fun. And anybody who can say, anyone who can say that today they didn't fall into whatever addiction, if it's food, if it's sugar, if it's drugs, if it's alcohol, if it's depression, if it's sex, whatever you're dealing with on life's terms, as long as you realize, today I'm going to just live today because that's all I got. Live in the moment, because that's one thing I admire so much about Brenda is she's such a fighter and she's so optimistic. I mean, as I've gotten to talk to her recently, she's one of those people who I look up to, because no matter how much everything's going wrong in her life, she's somebody who can say, I'm alive.
Yes.
It could be worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the three of us can all look back on our past and say, you know what? Today may not be perfect. I'm not exactly where I want to be at 36, but I know I'm a lot better than I was at 35.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my final thought on Brenda, then I don't want to give our timeline item, but there's a little quote that Brenda gave me that very first year we started. She said, until God calls me home, I am invincible.
Yep. I love that.
Yeah.
That's a cool.
So, Trevor, thanks for calling. Thanks for sharing.
Absolutely.
my last little timeline, which is always interesting that timelines line up. So
Oh, yeah.
it was February the 3rd, 2022. We were doing Goatee Michael Brown
Yeah.
back then, and Mike Adams, who owns Adams right up here in town, he opened up his restaurant for a fundraiser, kind of like Red Robin.
Yeah.
And if you came and had dinner with Mike Adams, that he donated 20% back to what we were doing to help Michael out.
Okay.
And that was our timeline item, which lines up so wonderfully with our Red Robin event.
Yeah.
So that will give you right back to Marianne.
Okay. Well, a huge shout out to our sponsor for the second half, who is Marianne McNally, who is a residential real estate specialist with Next Home Realty Connection. So if you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or just not sure where to start, definitely give her a call. That's where you start.
That's where you start.
And her number is 503-409-4389. And we'll be back next week
As the movement continues.